Hello everyone, I'm Michaela Kathleen, and in this video I'm doing my June reading wrap-up. I read 3 books in June, and I started with Tokyo Vice by Jake Adelstein. This is a nonfiction book by a reporter who started working in Japan as like the first ever American reporter to work at a Japanese newspaper. And I actually picked this one up for my husband. He had just watched the show and really enjoyed it, so I picked it up for him as a fun treat. But then I also read it myself, and he rewatched the show and I watched it with him. And it's definitely a very interesting story. We are both interested in Japanese culture. I lived in Japan very briefly as a very young child, and we really would like to travel to Japan someday for like an anniversary trip or something. We're both slowly learning a little bit of Japanese, mostly through Duolingo, so this definitely was just within our interest area. That being said, the book itself, while it's very interesting, does feel somewhat disconnected. It feels like a bunch of disconnected stories, which makes sense. As a reporter, you're not necessarily always following the same story. The show, I think, is less accurate to what really happened, but that is partly because the show does go through the effort of making it not all seem like a bunch of disconnected stories. So I would say the show is more enjoyable, but the book is probably more realistic. It does definitely give a very interesting glimpse into Japanese culture. So overall, a fun read for me, a very interesting read, but not a perfect read by any means. After that, I read We'll Always Have Paris by Jennifer Coburn, which was a mother-daughter travel memoir, so just all the nonfiction travel this month. This one being much more lighthearted and also much more touristy. And between the 3 kind of travel nonfictions that I've read in the past 2 months, because last month I read Lunch in Paris, which was also a memoir taking place mostly in Paris. Of those 3, this one was my least favorite. And to be clear, this one does not just take place in Paris, they're traveling all over Europe over the course of several years. And yeah, this one just was the least interesting to me. I enjoyed the narration style of this one the least. I honestly considered DNFing this one at various points, and probably wouldn't have been missing much if I had, although my favorite chapter did happen near the end of the book. I found that chapter to be the most humorous. But yeah, overall this one felt like the least kind of informative. I didn't really like the narrator very much, and just wasn't super exciting or interesting. And then finally in June, I read The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I literally just finished this one like 15 minutes ago. It is a chonker. Very nearly didn't finish it in time. Shooting this the day before I'm hoping to get it up. But this one has been on my radar for a very long time. I saw Patrick Rothfuss in person at NerdCon Stories, I think in 2016, and had no previous knowledge of him, but on this panel that he was a part of, he just came across as really witty and nice. And so he's been on my radar ever since then. But I was aware that his only series is unfinished, and it's been like at least a decade since the last one came out. So much like Game of Thrones, we might never see how this one ends, so that just kind of automatically had me not like super in a rush to read the book, especially because it is a chonker, so it's a big commitment that might not have any payoff. But I did enjoy the book. It took a very long time for me to start enjoying the book. I was on the edge of DNFing for like the first 100 pages, and then the next 100 after that were still pretty slow and questionable. But the book did get better and better as it went. The beginning was just incredibly slow and also kind of confusing. I didn't really start enjoying the book until our main character was kind of on the streets struggling, and then after that is the section where he goes to university. But like I said, overall I enjoyed it. It was funny. It was well written and like a pretty easy read. Like, it wasn't so dense like some fantasy epics can be once it got past those first 100 pages. I think a common complaint with this one is the main character is just a little bit too perfect. He comes across a little bit as like a Mary Sue type character, which I could definitely see. So yeah, just kind of another mixed bag here. It was very slow to start, but I did enjoy it overall. But considering we don't have an end for the series, and it doesn't seem likely, I do think I'm going to unhaul this one, and then if I ever catch wind that the final book has come out, I will just go ahead and get a new copy of the first one. That way I can reread it and finish the series, if that's ever an option. So yeah, those were the 3 books that I read in June. Let me know down below what you read in June. I hope you enjoyed watching. Remember, words matter.